The drill ship Borealis 7 groaned like an animal in its sleep, the sound of ice cracking against its hull, reverberating through every corridor. Lyra Kovac felt the vibration in her molars as she rode the cargo lift down from the habitation tier to the monitoring deck. Her breath puffed mist in the unheated shaft, then froze to glitter on the steel mesh around her boots. Outside the narrow safety grates, the world was a single colorless cataract. Gale-scoured snow, night sky, and kilometer-wide auroras blending into an indifferent white that swallowed the sun itself. An entire forgotten civilization lay beneath that pall. Once there had been oceans and forests. Now Earth was locked in permafrost, thick enough to grind mountains into wheat flour. Only the geothermal scars, hot spots where magma still surged near the crust, gave off warmth. The Arctic Cap Drilling Consortium had built titanic rigs over those places, cathedral-sized derricks anchored by pistons as broad as city streets. Each installation mined heat and minerals, traded with distant stations by sub-ice mag trains, and prayed that the vents beneath their feet never went cold. Yet the vents were not the only danger. The ice itself sang. Inside the monitoring bay, amber light washed the consoles. Lyra slipped the sensor visor over her eyes and connected a throat mic. Row after row of seismic graphs scrolled up the virtual overlay, but she pushed past them to the audio filters. Whisper curves carved into code, tuned to isolate siren song. On a normal day, the equipment picked up ordinary noises: wind, ice creep, stress pops. But sometimes patterns emerged in the static, patterns that coaxed the mind to lean closer, just a little farther, until a worker unhooked a tether and stepped into eternity. "Any change?" asked Captain Reyes, the duty watch officer, when he strode in smelling of recycled coffee. "Nothing yet," Lyra answered. "The gusts are still strong enough to smear the microphone arrays. If the sirens are out there, they're hiding under white noise." Reyes scanned the graphs. "They wait for storms, cuts down visibility, lets them get close. Keep at it." He left. Lyra stayed, listening. Some claimed the ice sirens were only a myth, overworked miners hallucinating because of carbon monoxide leaks or cabin fever. Others swore they'd seen lithe figures in the blizzard, faces like cracked porcelain, fingertips glowing with faint luminescence. Science officers found partial footprints, elongated toes, claws more like fluting than keratin. Yet no specimen had ever been captured. Meanwhile, the casualty lists grew. Lyra thought of Milo, her little brother, assigned topside cable maintenance 2 weeks ago. He laughed when she coached him on radio protocols, teased her about being overprotective. "I'll be fine," he said. "Ice sirens can't carry a grown man. They'd get a hernia." She hadn't laughed. Statistics said new surface techs were the easiest prey. A klaxon cut through her memory. "Vent Crew Bravo, status yellow," boomed the intercom. "Report to forward airlock." Lyra jolted upright, bringing camera feeds onto her visor. A salvage rover, its floodlights punching tunnels through the storm, crawled toward the main tram line. The feed from the driver's suit cam showed an empty driver's seat. Nobody at the wheel. Wind couldn't move a 40-ton rover uphill. Something else had placed it in gear. "Reyes, I have an unmanned vehicle on the surface," Lyra reported. "Tag number 3B014. Last logged driver, Milo Kovac." Static hissed back. The circuit was overloaded by other chatter. Shouting, orders, biometric alarms. The rig was waking to an emergency. She cursed, unclipped from her station, and sprinted for the half-frozen ladder well. A freight elevator would take too long. As she descended, her headset caught fragments of radio. Not responding. Opened outer hatch alone. "Blood on the treads." By the time she reached the operations deck, a cluster of security personnel stood at a bulkhead monitor. Captain Reyes turned, his expression locked between sympathy and command. "We found Milo's beacon signal," he said quietly, 60 meters north of the drone crane pit. "Found?" Lyra's throat felt full of broken glass. "Inside a surface fissure. Tether severed. Helmet cams frozen, but the telemetry shows a drop of 30 meters. We can't get a crawler there until the gale subsides. That could be hours." Reyes didn't dispute her. Regulations forbade unescorted excursions topside during a whiteout. Losing another crew member wouldn't revive Milo. But if he was still alive, minutes mattered. Lyra turned away before anyone could stop her. She slammed through the equipment lockers, yanking out an orange pressure suit, magnetic crampons, and a coil of smart fiber rope that pulsed faintly with power from its microreactors. Her father had called her stubborn as basalt. She embraced the trait now. A security guard tried to block the exit lift. "Can't authorize," he said, armor plates clacking. "Slow down and think." "I'm thinking," she replied, voice eerie in her helmet. "I'm thinking my brother is freezing in the dark because management is afraid to risk a statistic." She slapped the manual override. The lift dropped like a stone. Wind seized her the instant the upper hatch opened. It tasted of metal so cold it burned. She engaged the crampons and leaned into the gale, following the rover's gouged track across the ice sheet. Her suit's low-light visor painted luminous green outlines over terrain, but obscured depth. The ground seemed to tilt in dizzying ways. She toggled audio to external pickup. The world howled like wolves on megaphones. Beneath that, a subtler note threaded the chaos. A crystalline dropping scale reminiscent of chimes vibrating in warm water. Siren song. She switched to the counter-harmonic Reyes had given her once in a joking just-in-case briefing. A synthesized growl designed to jumble the brain's response to seductive frequencies. The two tones met inside her helmet, made her teeth itch, but steadied her stride. Lyra reached the fissure, a black seam ringed by rime feathers. According to the wrist display, Milo's beacon lay 30 meters down, stationary, but still signaling. She hammered an anchor spike into the ice, clipped on, and abseiled. The crevasse walls swallowed the storm roar. Only her respirator and the faint resonance of the rope remained. She descended past frosted stalactites that pinged as they fractured off her gear, then landed on a ledge no wider than a dinner tray. The beacon pulsed crimson farther below. She called Milo's name over the suit channel. No answer. Another voice answered instead. It was like hearing your own memory of lullabies. Old, sweet, private. It spoke inside the bones, not the ears. Lyra felt her body tilt toward the drop, knees softening. She shoved gloved fingers into a crack until pain cleared her head. A figure climbed into view opposite her. Luminous, androgynous, hair swirling like spun sugar in weightless water. No environmental suit. Skin translucent, latticed with icy veins that glimmered blue-green. Eyes black as obsidian arrowheads. The siren smiled. "My brother," Lyra said, though sound hardly left her mouth. "Give him back." The creature touched a clawed finger to its lips. It opened its other hand. In the palm lay Milo's torn ID badge. Lyra's countertone still thrummed, but the siren wasn't singing anymore. It was using Milo's voice, rebroadcast like an echo across the ice. "Lyra, don't worry, sis. It's warm down here. So warm. Come and see." She hurled a flare. The magnesium glare cut through the gloom and carved harsh magenta shadows over the creature's face. Its smile broke like thin glass. It recoiled, pupils contracting to pinpoints. Lyra used the moment to drop the rest of the way, falling free rope 10 meters to the base of the fissure. When she hit, her suit's gel padding absorbed the impact, but black spots burst behind her eyes. She forced them aside. Milo's beacon lay beside a collapsed tunnel mouth. Blood, liquid blood, steamed on the rocks, not yet frozen. Warmth leaked from the tunnel, the geothermal vent network, so the Sirens were using the vents as entryways, drawing heat, oxygen, maybe prey. Borealis 7 was built right over their hunting ground. Lyra hauled Milo's beacon onto her belt. A scrap of fabric still attached, smelled faintly of antiseptic, and the cinnamon gum he always chewed. She pressed it to her helmet visor. "I'm not leaving," she murmured. "I'm going in." She squeezed through the tunnel. Yellowish light glowed ahead, molten rock channels, lightning rift quartz, and industrial lamps installed by survey teams years earlier. The environment gradually abandoned sub-zero to hover just above freezing. Her visor fogged, then cleared. Something glittered on the cavern floor. Wrenched-off grapples, helmet shards, bones polished smooth. The passage opened into a chamber, large enough to fit the rig's entire habitation block. At its center stood a vertical column of basalt ringed by pools of boiling water. Around the pools knelt dozens of Sirens, heads bowed, palms placed on the stone as if in prayer. Between them lay miners' bodies, some intact, some half-sheathed in crystal ice, all serenely pale. Steam drifted under the vaulted ceiling, where frost grew in vein patterns like cathedral glass. Lyra counted quickly. 24 Sirens, not illusions. Real. Her heart threatened to detonate. She slipped behind a stalagmite and ran inventory. One flare left, welder torch, a spool of DEET cord for blasting exploratory passages. Her father's voice resurfaced. Another ghost. "If you can't fight the enemy, fight the ground they stand on." She unslung the det cord. The Sirens continued their ritual, humming sub-audible waves that resonated up her spine. She wept without realizing, eyes overflowing inside her helmet. The song told stories of seas thawing, of sleek bodies gliding beneath constellations seen through clear water. It promised the return of abundance for those who released themselves to it. She saw Milo somewhere in that dream world, grinning, waving. She stepped forward unconsciously. Pain snapped her back. Her tether line had snagged, jerking her harness. The counter-harmonic still thrummed, mangled by static but keeping a feeble barrier. Enough to remember. Promises were weapons. She wound the dit cord around the basalt column, wedging the line beneath pillow lava lobes. The cord's microlights went from red to green. Armed. The blast would collapse the chamber roof, seal the vent, maybe cook everything inside, including her. Then she saw Milo. He lay by a pool, chest rising faintly. A Siren stroked his forehead. 4 more crouched nearby, claws resting lightly on ribs and temples, as if playing an instrument. Her brother's lips moved. His lungs expelled vapor that curled into symbols she almost understood. She couldn't leave him. Lyra adjusted the timer to 60 seconds, then drew the welder torch. She charged from cover. With a roar, the suit mic distorted into a lion's cough. Arcs of blue flame cut across steam, searing the closest Siren. Its skin blistered. The helium-like scream tore through the chamber. The others wheeled toward her. She kept the torch between them and hurled her last flare onto the DEET cord spool. Magnesium spattered orange stars. Light was pain to them. They recoiled, 30 seconds. She dropped to Milo's side. His eyes opened. A child's eyes, lost. "It's so warm," he whispered. She slapped an emergency stimulant patch onto the side of his neck. You want warm? I'll give you warm, she muttered, hooking him to her harness. 20 seconds. The sirens rallied, crawling low, claws clicking like knitting needles. Their song shifted to claws-on-glass dissonance that drilled behind Lyra's eyes. Blood trickled from her nose. 10. She triggered her suit's exo-servo booster. Hydraulic pistons pushed her and Milo toward the exit tube. She fired the welder backward as she went, tracing a curtain of plasma. 5. She launched a grappling spike into the vertical shaft, leading to the fissure. The winch yanked them up. 1. A sun bloomed below. The chamber roof erupted, sending geysers of superheated water and incandescent rock. The shockwave hurled Lyra into the narrow shaft. Her backplate slammed ice. She kept Milo wrapped in her arms as the winch reeled madly, cable shrieking. Behind them, the vent imploded. Millions of tons of ice folded into the cavity, sealing it. They burst onto the surface in a gout of dust and steam that punched a transient hole through the blizzard, revealing stars so bright they stung. Lyra's radio filled with shouts. Search parties alerted by the explosion. She staggered toward the blinking beacon of a rescue sled. Hands took Milo, fitted him with medfoam. More hands guided her down. Captain Reyes knelt, ice rhyming his mustache. You're a lunatic, he said. Thank you. Lyra shook her head. I just bought us time. They'll find another vent. Maybe, but the engineers calculate we were weeks from a catastrophic blowout. Their excavations compromised load-bearing struts. Your blast released pressure in a controlled direction. The rig's stable again. Hell of an unintended favor. She remembered the sirens chanting around the basalt pillar, as if tapping into the vent's power to amplify their reach. Cutting it might have spared the whole fleet of rigs, or maybe only delayed the inevitable. She was no geologist. Reyes said Milo would live. Frostbite on his extremities, minor hypoxia, but alive. The ice sirens had kept him warm enough to finish their conversion. The medical team didn't understand the changes in his autonomic readouts, the odd epigenetic markers. He'd have to stay in quarantine until they did. Lyra sat with him in the medbay, while the rig's hull vibrated from distant aftershocks. When he finally woke, his eyes held that same dream-water depth, but also recognition. He squeezed her hand. Did you hear them? He asked. I heard too much. They were afraid. The cold is killing them also. They need the vents like we do. She couldn't fight the truth of that. Every species on this frozen planet chased heat like moths. Weeks passed. Repairs progressed. Borealis 7 celebrated survival with rationed vodka and recycled music loops. Lyra returned to the monitoring deck, but she recalibrated the sensors differently. Not merely to catch a melody and jam it, but to translate. One night, the sirens spoke again. Not a lure this time, but a pattern of simple math tones, primes, harmonic sums. A language bridge, thin as spider silk. She played back an answer in keyboard notes. The next transmission included coordinates. Another vent, unstable, due to erupt and shatter kilometers of ice. Evac population, or reinforce. The decision moved upward. Some scoffed. Trap. Others, remembering the explosion she'd caused, listened. Satellite drones confirmed the instability. In secret meetings, consortium brass negotiated with the unknown. Cargo sleds delivered machinery to the coordinates, left it, withdrew. Sensors later registered a timed release of pressure, venting safely through engineered chimneys carved with impossibly smooth spirals. No siren bodies were found. Only new heat wells marked by crystalline spires that glowed blue in the long night, an accord of sorts. The sun rose on the next solstice, a red smear above the horizon. Lyra and Milo stood on Borealis 7's observation gantry. His eyes mirrored the dawn, as though carrying twin fires inside. He said he could hear the sirens at the edge of the wind, a thank you chorus. "What will you do?" he asked her. She looked at the rigs dotting the ice valley, each a titan hammering the Earth's crust for survival. "We keep drilling," she said, "but maybe not only for ourselves." Milo smiled. "Maybe we listen too." Below them, steam columns from the rig's vents curled upward, mingling with storm clouds. Somewhere beyond that white vastness, voices rose, not to lure, but to welcome. For the first time in generations, the frozen planet held the faint, fragile chord of collaboration, a melody strong enough, perhaps, to thaw a world.